Hi, and welcome to The Pit Lane, a Formula One podcast where we talk about everything F1. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing the Japanese Grand Prix. Will Sainz continue his elite form? Will Ricciardo get back on track versus Yuki? And will Max come back from his DNF in Australia? I am your host, Jordan Wynn. Alongside me is my co-host, Alden Cawell. Welcome back, Alden.
Thanks, Jordan. It's nice to see you again after 2 weeks off.
Yeah. We can start with some news.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Andretti opened up its new Silverstone facility built for Formula One to aid their headquarters in Indianapolis.
I saw this today on my lunch break. It is a substantial investment from them. Obviously, they can pivot. They could sell it. They could lease it if they don't end up using it. But, I mean, they're ready. They're going for it.
Yeah, and they're prepared to clearly do what it takes. They're still trying to get into F1. They're also, the rumor is that they're planning for F2 and F3 entries with an Andretti-based team to, promote drivers to Formula One as well. So that'd be a big step for them.
That would.
Other F1 news we got. We have some new F1 grade tracks. So I think I can't remember.
Grade 1?
Grade 1, yeah. Are planned for South Korea and in China, supposedly.
Yeah, I also saw this today, and that was interesting. There's the existing track that was in South Korea, or that is in South Korea, but it's like just so far away from any major city.
Yeah, that's kind of why they stopped going there.
Yeah, it hosted the race there, about a decade ago now. And then China, do you know anything about the China one? It would just be another one? Would it replace the one in Shanghai?
I'm guessing it's just another one. I don't know where it's going. I haven't heard anything other than that's what they're talking about.
Interesting.
To go along the South Korean one, but
I'd like to go back to South Korea, hopefully at the expense of some of the tracks that we did a video on earlier that we didn't really care for. And I mean, China would be cool. I don't know. Maybe we got a second China race.
See what layouts look like.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd probably replace Shanghai maybe, but I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see how good the race is this coming weekend, if we really want to replace it or not.
It's been 5 years since we've been there.
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting. Prema, they run primarily in F2 and F3. They are planning a full-time IndyCar seat for 2 cars in 2025.
Interesting. So they're getting a head start this year on a possible entry for next year.
Yes.
Wow. Do you know if that'll be like considered on par with the F2 outfit, or will it be like a graduating step for some of the drivers? Or
it's probably a graduating step because I guess I don't know how many points they get, their super license points and all that stuff. Because if you race an IndyCar, you still get super license points.
Yeah.
So it's not on level of F1, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's still like a top tier league, obviously in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Prema's coming in. They're primarily European. So yeah, they're bringing in a full-fledged team. Crazy how they're allowed in and Andretti's not into Formula One.
Oh, wow.
But,
what do you know?
did I say that out loud?
There's clearly no American bias on this podcast.
No. But let's get into the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, normal weekend, free practice 1 and 2 on Friday, free practice 3 and qualifying on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. The only real sort of difference this weekend from a quote-unquote normal weekend would just be the time zone differences. We're over in Asia right now, so a lot of the races are on very early in the morning.
Time of year as well. We've been going in the fall lately.
Yep.
In Japan, and now it's springtime.
Spring.
So we
get during the middle of the cherry blossoms.
Yes, the cherry blossoms. A little bit more color. Beautiful. Scenery's great. It's a fun time
also
of year
more potential for rain.
This time of year?
In April?
Versus fall? It always rains in the fall.
Maybe it just always rains there.
I mean, it's probably 50-50, right?
It did
You've
rain.
been there, right? So
yeah, in December.
Yeah, so it's not quite the same. It's probably rainy season.
It did rain then too, though.
Yeah.
You went too, right?
Well, I've flown
through.
And
was it raining when you got there?
It does
Okay,
sometimes,
wow.
not every
Wow,
time.
dude.
Sometimes. It's probably 50-50.
Yeah, uneventful free practice 1, aside from Logan Sargent crashing his car.
Yes. Good news. Chassis didn't need repairs.
First good news, both cars were on the track at one point at the same time because they had 2 chassis.
With upgrades.
With upgrades. Then Logan crashed.
Correct. No more upgrades for him.
No more upgrades for him, but his chassis did not require fixing.
Correct.
But he crashed.
But he did crash.
Yes.
So he was out of FP2 as well.
Which was fine because it ended up kind of being an odd session where it rained and then it drizzled and it got dry, but then it drizzled again.
I think Hamilton's really the only person that went out.
Yeah. And so it was kind of a nothing session, but it would have been like one of the only sort of comparative sessions for qualifying.
Right.
Which didn't really hurt anyone, I guess, in the long run when it came to the qualifying.
Other than maybe Lance Stroll.
I mean, he kind of struggles to qualify anyway, but you're right.
So that's true.
So
maybe it was just normal day.
Right. And
really.
And that's not a knock against Lance. I mean, one of the reasons why he has some of the most overtakes in Formula One is of recent memory is because he qualifies his car out of position and then
first few laps.
He just rocks it.
Yep.
Just brings it up.
He is a pretty good starter, to be fair.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, he qualifying, he was out in Q1. His teammate qualified in P5?
And yeah, Aston Martin brought some upgrades this weekend.
They did.
And at first, during the practice sessions, they were running sort of some correlation stuff. So Alonso had the aero rakes on, but then they ended up both having the upgrades. They had enough upgrades or enough parts and pieces and what have you for both cars to have the upgrade. Yeah. And Alonso mentioned that it was night and day difference. He felt like he was having a great weekend.
Yeah. We can get into his race a little bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, sounds like he had a great weekend. We can get into the race here. We can start with Red Bull and what's new. Max qualifies P1. Finishes P1.
Oh. Sergio qualified P2. Finished P2. Oh. So nothing new there.
Not a whole lot new. Sergio is continuing his pretty good streak, though, at the beginning of the year. I think he's been P2 three out of 4.
Yep.
I think Australia is the only one he wasn't.
Correct.
But yeah, good start of the season for him. He's qualifying a lot closer to Max as well.
Yes,
I think
he is.
It was like, 500ths?
Yeah, he was very close. At the,
or maybe
Q3?
it was Q2.
I think it was Q2, yeah.
Either way, I mean, he's been closer to Max than he's been, which is huge for his confidence and contract going forward, hoping to keep his seat. But yeah, another standard, let's say, weekend for Red Bull. Ferrari, Carlos P3. I think he qualified 4th on the grid. My memory serves.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Behind Lando.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the Ferrari's just really got on tires right now. Carlos Sainz is driving the heck out of the car. Had another great weekend. I think he's finished on the podium every race he's been involved in.
He's been involved in key. Yeah.
He missed the Jeddah race.
Yep.
So 3 out of 4 races of the year, he's been on the podium, and he's won one.
He's been great. He's been great this year. He had a very good race. He ended up passing Charles kind of with like 10 laps to go or something.
Yeah, but that was like strategy difference. So, so he could chase after Perez.
Yeah. And I mean, he was like the best of the rest, right? Like if we kind of, Max and Sergio kind of just dominated, did their whole thing. Carlos had a great race.
Great weekend.
Great weekend. He just got his head down, got the work done, drove the wheels off his car. It was incredible.
Do you think Ferrari's regretting not re-signing him at the moment?
Perhaps
from a driver's standpoint.
In the moment they might, but I think if they take the long view, they may not feel like it was a bad idea. If Carlos had wanted to get a contract extension, he should have driven his car like this last year.
To be fair, I believe at the end of our season review, you mentioned that he was above Charles.
He was. Yeah. No, you're right.
My memory serves.
He really. I wonder what they're all looking at. Who's making the decision? Is it Fred? Is it Fred and
The board?
Is it out of Fred's hands? Is it a marketing decision? Right? Like,
'cause Hamilton's going to bring in a lot of money.
he's going to bring in a lot of money. He's going to be worth his weight in gold. And like, maybe they think Charles is the driver of the future for their team and that Lewis will just prep him, or not that he's obligated to in any way or fashion, but Carlos is good. And maybe there's other metrics that they're measuring the drivers on, right? Maybe they decided early last year that they were going to pursue Lewis at any cost.
And it does sound like that it was probably midway through the year that they had already gone through a lot of what they were planning to do.
So maybe kind of like the decision was already made at the end of last season that Carlos was going to get replaced, or that they were going to search for alternatives. And if by a given date they couldn't find one, would they just re-sign him? Maybe.
Right.
I mean, he's driven the car well, but at the beginning of last year, I think he had some issues.
Yeah, he did.
And then he only really kind of came strong at the end. And I mean, he had that really unfortunate Las Vegas race where
The pothole or the drain
manhole,
cover came up.
They could have honestly finished the season second last year, if not for some unfortunate bad luck.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know if they regret signing Lewis, but I mean,
we are only 4 races in.
we're only 4 races in. Charles could just
20 to go.
turn it on to mega mode or something.
And he
right?
will at one point, I think.
Yeah.
But right now he's struggling to figure it out.
He's got to win a
Struggling,
race here.
quote unquote.
Yeah.
Charles, speaking of Charles, P4 in the race.
Yep.
He made his way up from 8th.
Yeah.
He did a 1-stop. He was the only one to do effectively a 1-stop.
Yep.
Because of the red flag,
Right.
lap 1. But yeah, he made the 1-stop work, and he started on a medium tire. He pitted the same lap as Lando Norris's second pit stop.
Wow.
So that shows you how long he carried those mediums for.
A long
And
time
with a full tank of fuel.
on a heavy tank of fuel.
So it was very impressive, but I think it shows that a Ferrari's got a good car in the race. They're, with their new concept, they figured out their tire deg, which was their Achilles heel last year, really, because they had 1 lap pace.
Yep.
But they didn't have the tire deg. So huge race from him.
Yeah, and even at the end of the race, he sort of felt disappointed in his performance. But like, I think some perspective, and perhaps he's seen it now. But like, dude, you ran a completely different strategy than many of the other folks. You finished 4th. You're not on the podium, sadly, but a little bit of luck here, a little bit of luck there. You would have had an even better race.
Comes down to qualifying, really.
Right.
I mean, if he qualifies, maybe where Sainz does.
Yeah, maybe.
Or is he chasing down Perez? Is he in front of Perez at that point
Could be.
with the 1-stop? But then do they even go for a 1-stop at that
Right.
point as well?
Maybe not.
So
The strategy paid off.
yeah, yes it did.
Yep.
McLaren special livery.
Wah, 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 wah.
So McLaren a special livery, quote unquote, this weekend. I don't know how special you want to call it.
No. Thematic? Yes.
A little bit of thematic.
A little thematic.
It's got all of its same stuff, but then it's got some blue and some white texture. It's supposed to be like cherry blossoms or something.
Yeah.
On the side pod and on the wing, and a little bit on the
Air intake.
on the top. But it's like
It's so
blended
difficult.
in.
Yeah, it's so difficult to see because there's hardly any paint on the cars anymore.
Yeah.
That you can't tell that that's what it is. It just, from the pictures, maybe in person it's different.
Yeah, like if you're standing next to it,
Right.
and you can see it.
But standing 8,000 miles away
Watching it on TV, driving past your screen.
at 200 miles an hour, it just looked like a blue and white blur with the orange.
Yeah, so nothing really that special.
No.
In my opinion, I guess.
Medium. This is a medium.
Medium. I'll
Medium,
take that.
yeah.
Yeah. Not great. Not terrible.
But Lando, like you said, so he started the race, P3 after qualifying?
Yes.
Ended up finishing the race in 5th after pitting 2 times. He ran a strategy similar to many of the other drivers. Charles kind of did that one-stop thing, but Lando, even on fresh tires, couldn't really catch Charles.
Yeah. Like we said, they pitted at the same time, and all of a sudden your tire difference, there is none. So at a track like Suzuka, it's very difficult to pass, unless I think I was hearing that, you need to have like a 1 second delta to the car in front of you or something, which is absurd.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just McLaren didn't have it like the Ferraris did with the tire day. So that's what really killed them. Killed them as in, the third best car on the grid.
Yeah.
Which
is still great for him.
Yeah.
Great points all.
Yep.
Piastri P8 finished.
Yeah, I can't remember where he started. I think maybe 6th. Sounds right to me, but
I think I think that's right.
Yeah. Car, just didn't have the pace of the Ferraris. Didn't have the pace of Alonso, and Russell got him toward the end of the race, I think with a couple laps to go.
That's
I think
right.
he went deep into the last chicane and lost out to Russell.
Yeah.
But, McLaren's just kind of...
Wait, did he? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He went deep and then got past on the straight, front straight. Piastri P8.
Aston Martin had decent weekend. This time last year, they would have been fighting up at the front with the Red Bulls, but all things considered, they had a solid weekend. Fernando Alonso continues to show just how talented the man is, how fit he is.
At 42, 43 years old.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, he finished P6, and he had Piastri, like we were talking about, Piastri was behind him, and he also used him as a buffer.
It was just like dangling a carrot behind him just to keep the cars in front of, what a guy. It's just, yeah.
He knew Piastri couldn't get him on the straight because
Yeah.
that McLaren wasn't fast enough, but kept him in the DRS just so Russell couldn't get by.
Right.
Because I think Russell was on fresher tires.
Yep.
And he just drove away from Piastri after that, and there wasn't enough laps for George to catch back up.
Right.
So finished P6 for kind of what Alonso claims. I mean, I'm sure if you handed him a list of races, he would not consider it, but he says it's a top 5 weekend for him, considering where the Aston Martin is. He thinks it's the 5th fastest car on the grid, which he might be right. He drives the car. But I know he likes to toot his own horn a little bit too.
I don't know how to qualify how fast the car is. I mean, given the fact that they're 5th in the standings, the Mercedes is 1 point ahead of them, but are they the 5th fastest car with Alonso in it? Is he the 6th fastest car out of all the cars, out of the 20?
Right.
I mean, there's a difference between the way Alonso's driving it and Stroll's driving it. And I don't think that's a negative against Stroll. That's just a clear indication of how incredible Alonso's driving this car.
Right.
So,
I mean, and that's just Alonso's almost his entire career has been this way. I mean,
Right.
when he was in the garbage McLaren,
right.
I think he out-qualified Stoffel by I think it was the entire season. He swept him.
Yeah.
It was 21-0 or 20-0.
Those years where he was driving the Ferrari, just an absolute awful car, and was still bringing it home for podiums and race victories and almost winning a championship. Man can drive. If I let me just say this. If I was late for my flight and I needed to pick a driver of anyone, Alonso would be my guy.
For your flight.
Yeah. Get me there, man.
I got to get there. Stroll, P12. He started P16? Kind of we touched on earlier.
Yep.
He pitted late. I think he was stuck behind Yuki and he couldn't get past. So he pitted late for a set of softs with 10 or 11 laps to go. And he was in 11th place at the time and just couldn't make the positions back up to get into the points paying position. But he just couldn't get past Yuki at that time.
He passed a lot of cars. He was part of this weird mega pit stop fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
thing where he made up a lot of places. He was running in the points for a while, but he just like, even with some of the cars ahead of him falling, like he just ended up pitting 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just took too much time out of his
race. Yeah. That's like over a minute.
Yeah.
That's Suzuka. So Mercedes, Russell, P7, Hamilton, P9. Kind of another one of those mundane Mercedes weekend, it feels like to me.
Yeah.
They qualified there too. So not really.
They didn't gain, they didn't lose.
Yeah.
This is starting to become their norm, right? Like it
is the norm.
This
is where they are.
This is where they are. And I think for a lot of the folks inside that team, it's difficult to accept. But the reality may be setting in for them, right? Like for the viewers, like, no, this is kind of how good your car is.
Yep.
I wonder if this is going to spiral in any way, or if this will just solidify their resolve to make up for it and do better and
work harder somehow and find a better solution.
Right. A way to unlock this car, because like they can't just start over
again with one more year regulation, right?
To be fair, this car is basically only 4 races old.
Yes.
Could they, like, there's been a lot of testing.
Could you have a McLaren year of last year?
Exactly. Or can you just continue to build on it and build on it and build on it like Ferrari?
Yep.
And just, hey, maybe by the end of the year, you're starting to be like, P3, P4, P5, P6 at the worst.
Pole here and there.
Right. You're starting to have some really good races, maybe having some fastest laps late in the race. Kind of unlikely, but maybe they'll end up being signs, nuggets, little things to build on, pieces that can build confidence for the team and the drivers and the mechanics and everyone inside that team, and then take that for next year and just have a stronger foundation to move forward. But at the moment, P7 and P9 for an 8-time world championship constructor, and
that's recent too.
That's recent, right?
So that's tough. I think they're looking toward 2026.
Yeah.
As soon as they can. Can't come soon enough for them.
Nope.
New engine regs, new regs in general. So
right.
See what happens then. But yeah, right now, there's still progress to be made, but they can still move forward. But right now, they're that's just where they're at. Back of the top 5.
Right.
VCARB, Visa Cash App Red Bull. I had to think about what the acronym was for a minute. But yeah, this brings us to Yuki's home race.
Yuki's home race. What a drive. What a weekend for him.
It was a perfect weekend for him.
It was a great weekend for the team as well, because during FP1, Daniel Ricciardo got a little bit of extra time off, and they put in Iwasa, one of their up-and-coming drivers. I think, is he their reserve driver or test driver this year, or both?
Is he an F2?
I can't
he used to be? I think he used to be an F2. So maybe he's just in there. Maybe he's a reserve driver.
In their program.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he ended up getting some driving time in FP1. So
double Japanese
drivers on the track at the same time during FP1. The home crowd was going nuts.
Yeah, it's cool to see. Very cool to see. And yeah, so Yuki ends up qualifying P10 ahead of Ricciardo, just barely. Ricciardo qualified P11.
P11, yep. And there really wasn't much between their laps. I mean, it was very close.
It was tight.
Yeah,
it was very tight. But there's only one spot to be had because Stroll qualified P16.
Yep.
So yeah, Yuki P10, finished P10, gets points at his home race. That was the first time he's finished in the points there. First points for Japanese driver at the home race in over a decade.
Wow. Since 2012, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A podium. And ran a great race. He had some great passes in the S's. And he had that pit stop. That's which we referred to earlier.
The mega pit stop.
Yeah, so there's a 5-car train. I believe who was there?
K-Mag was in Sargent.
Yep.
Yuki, Stroll.
So K-Mag was leading that train. They all came in. So, yep, K-Mag, Bottas, Sargent, Yuki, Stroll in that order. K-Mag loses 2 places. Bottas loses 2 places. We know they have their lug nut issue down there.
Yeah.
Sargent loses 2 places.
Oh, no.
Yuki gets 3. So he leads the train, and Stroll
gains 3.
So he's right behind Yuki. But I think there was an Alpine that split him
on the exit.
So Yuki's like by himself out front, and then Stroll's stuck behind Alpine for most of the lap.
Right. It was just this weirdest thing where all of a sudden they cut to like all these cars leaving the pit, and it was 6 cars going into turn 1.
Yeah.
Like, and all side by side. It was like, whoa, what's going on here?
This hasn't happened. This isn't lap 1. It was actually really cool to see.
It was
fun
because Yuki
pit
just
stop race
on new tires just ran off.
Yes.
Just gone.
Yeah, it was awesome to see. It was fun that was Yuki that came out on top in that situation, and he converted it.
Yeah.
Which is huge, obviously, for him. It's back-to-back points. Gets them further ahead of, I believe, Haas.
Yep.
For what, 7th in the standings?
They are 6th.
6th.
On 7 points.
6 on 7 points. Okay. So, yeah, huge race from him. We'll get into Ricardo.
Yeah, you mentioned that he qualified just 1 position behind Yuki in P11, but he crashed on the opening lap.
Yeah, so him and Yuki both had horrible starts. Yeah. I don't know. I think they were on a tire difference.
Okay.
I think they were both on the mediums or hards. I can't remember. And then everybody else was on 1 step down from them. Both had terrible starts. They kind of get swallowed up. And after the first corner, all of a sudden, Ricardo's in the middle of the track. Stroll was to his left and still is, but not next to him anymore. Yeah. And Ricardo's just kind of been looking in mirrors to his left, thinking that Stroll's still there. Is he still there? Still there.
Right, because he's about to turn in.
Because we're going to the left hand. Yeah. Yes, to the left-right combination. And Stroll's not there next to him anymore. So he's like, okay, I can open up the corner to go left. So he swings right to turn left. Albon's there.
Yep.
Albon tried to back out, and it looked like he saw it coming before Ricardo knew it was happening. Because he tried to back out. I was like, no, we got to get out of the situation. Tried to back out. It's too late.
Too late.
Clipped his, I don't even think he got his tire. I think he just grabbed his wing.
Yeah.
And
lots of contact.
Yeah. Pulled them both off the track into the gravel and straight into the barriers, tire barriers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ricardo out, Albon out. Another damaged
chassis.
Chassis for Williams, which is very unfortunate.
Yep.
Because they'll have to ship that back
all the way to England.
Yeah. And get it fixed for China.
Which is in 2 weeks.
Yes. So freight costs.
Right. They have it less than
Parts
2 weeks
costs.
because they got to be there on Thursday to put the car together.
Yeah. So unfortunate for them. Unfortunate for Ricardo. That's not going to help confidence. Not going to help anything.
No, but I mean, it's a racing incident. I think he can walk away from that knowing, all right, hands held high. This wasn't anyone in particular's fault. I still qualified 11th just behind my teammate. Had a bad start. I was on the way. We were going to run this race. Yuki ended up finishing P10. All right, that's how good the car is. I could do that too.
Can he do that too?
He's got to believe it.
That's right.
Because if he can't believe it, then he shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And they need to put someone else in the car like Liam Lawson or Iwasa.
I like the picture that they had Ricardo, after he got out, he was standing by, I don't know, the pit wall or in the garage or whatever, chatting away, and there's Liam Lawson just standing in the background, lurking back there. But yeah, really unfortunate for Ricardo, and probably more unfortunate for Williams and Albon, because that wasn't his fault. And racing incident, just unfortunate that Williams has to repair another chassis, and that's
Logan Sargent's chassis.
Yes, it is Logan Sargent's chassis.
Yeah.
So which one is he going to get now?
I mean, just let the record show that Albon has damaged 2 chassis.
It's true. And Sargent hasn't damaged any chassis. To be fair,
but he hasn't damaged any chassis.
Correct. He's ruined parts, but not the chassis. So
it's tough down there. They've had a really bad start to the season, and even with they have crashed. Logan Sargent has withdrawn. They did not finish in the points yet at all. They've had a rough start to the year. Their car was barely ready for testing. They've redone all their processes over the winter. They've got new sponsors, all these things going on. Even then, they're still better than Alpine in the official standings.
They are. Yeah. That's the best part.
That, I think, illustrates just how awful like a season Sauber and Alpine have had, because I mean,
It's bad.
it's bad for all three of those teams, but Williams somehow, like, what? Because Albon finished 11th in Australia or something, so they've got that position.
He didn't race Australia.
Albon?
Albon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking you said Sargent.
No, sorry. Albon finished 11th, so like technically in the standings, they're P8, even though they're all tied on 0 points.
Right. What do you ever call it? Callback or whatever. Yep.
Yeah, wow. Terrible.
Haas. Nico Hulkenberg, P11. He was coming back toward Yuki at the end of the race, but didn't have enough laps to catch him. Seemed like another solid race for Haas. Just wasn't able to convert that 1 point that was left over. Just happened to be Yuki that got it. K-Mag, P13. Just lost out on the pit stop, and that was basically it for him.
Yep.
Didn't have the race pace after that. Kick, Sauber, starter, whatever.
The green and black team.
Green and black.
Yep.
Bottas, P14. Also lost out on the pit stops. Was actually having a pretty good race until that point. Just lost out again on that pit stop.
But they had some decent pit stops during the race. Like, I mean, slow by F1 standards, but
that's why he lost out on the positions, right?
Yeah, not the 50-second pit stops that they had.
Right. Earlier. It was like 4.5
Yeah.
versus V-Carb's 2.5.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, that's everything.
Right. But they have to take the time to do it. I found it interesting that they decided to pit or tried to cover off, I don't know who was in front of them, K-Mag.
Yeah.
Or go with him when it was like, you already know you're going to lose out on the pit stop.
Yeah.
What's there to gain from this? Like, you have to try something different, if you're going to try and work your way back in it. Because you're going
to earlier, undercut them or try and overcut them.
Right. Got to do something. But they just stayed pat. All of a sudden got 5 cars all together and you lost out. Because you knew you were going to lose out.
Yeah. It's tough.
Alpine.
Joe. First.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Joe, he ended up DNFing. He had like a gearbox issue or something with the car.
Something like that. Yeah, he came into the pits twice.
In consecutive laps.
Yeah, and the second time they retired the car, obviously, second time.
Sadly, that's too bad for him. Hopefully he can end up finishing the race.
Yeah, see, I don't think he had a good race up until that point either.
No.
So, but he's got his home race coming up. First Chinese driver in F1.
Yep.
Obviously, first Chinese driver to have a home race in F1 as well.
And
sure the crowd will be out.
He's been in F1 for what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
So
his third year.
He's got come on, please.
Yeah. Just let us get there.
Just let us get there.
Let us race. Right. Let me start. So yeah. Alpine, Ocon and Gasly, P15, P16. Still slow.
Yeah.
Is that it? That's all I got.
Did they touch in the first couple laps?
They did, but no damage to either of them.
No substantial damage.
Yeah, they touched each other. Came in contact.
Their livery updated this weekend.
Their livery updated.
Yeah, because the first 3 races they do the quote unquote
pink?
all pink, and now they're doing
I didn't even
more
know
blue.
Well, that's because they don't paint the cars anymore. I'm like, what? They did?
Yeah. No, the nose ended up looking almost like a little turquoisey under certain light. But yeah, I guess that's really all you can say about Alpine this year so far. Livery change, race 4.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next one.
Yep.
Williams, we touched on them most already, but Sargent, P17, lost out on the pit stop again. Yep. He ended up going to the gravel on his second stint or third stint.
Yeah, he lost a lot of time.
Yep. Kind of got stuck, had to reverse out. At least he got out.
Yep.
Didn't crash it.
No.
So that's good. But yeah, he just can't seem to string together a race.
Agreed.
Almost at all. There's always, or a weekend even, he can't have a solid weekend, right. I guess,
That car must just be a handful to drive. I mean, Albon's able to wrestle some stuff out of it. He hasn't really got any points this year, but just everything that's happened to both of them so far it just must be very difficult to sort of feel like you're on top of it, like you're making progress.
Right.
And I just, you're the mind game of I'm in a chassis that's not 100%. It's been repaired.
The team
chose someone else.
Yep. I didn't get to race a week.
Right.
Are we going to have 2 chassis in China?
I crashed in FP1.
Yeah.
It's just like
one thing after another.
Yeah.
And it's the entire team right now. It's not just him, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, right after like Albon crash, it showed the picture of James Vowles just staring at the screen. Like you could just see it in his eyes. Like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Like no one's fault, but like my luck, luck, all of our luck.
Right. I mean,
you gotta be kidding me.
All these crashes, you're spending all this money in a cost cap era.
Right.
Right. Where you can't afford, all these teams, they have budgets for crashes too. Right. But like they've probably already spent like $2 million on like freight costs,
Right.
and not to mention all the parts and everything else. Like it's tough to come back from that when you need to get upgrades going and all this stuff too. Everything just gets pushed back. So yeah, really unfortunate weekend for them. But yeah, that's the wrap on the teams.
Yeah.
What did you have for the best and worst drivers teams of the weekend?
So my best for the weekend, I had the Red Bull team as another 1-2 finish. They just had a great weekend. You qualify P1, P2, you finish P1, P2. Perez was passing people on the inside of 130R, just like guts to go. It was insane. And for all of them, just like the team executed, they had a great weekend. Great weekend for him. You can't get any more points because Max got fastest lap. So, they just capitalized completely.
My winner, I had Ferrari, and you're giving me flack for this beforehand, but my reasoning is this. I think this really cements them as the number 2 team, as if it didn't already. With Sainz finishing P3, passing Lando, and Leclerc also on a one-stop passing. So 2 different strategies, both getting ahead of the McLaren, which is probably the third now. I think solidifies them third on the grid. I think this is great for Ferrari, and they just keep pushing. Hopefully get some upgrades going. Maybe try and inch closer to the Red Bull. Maybe nick off a win or 2.
Yeah.
In the middle of the season somewhere, really get that rolling. Maybe into the next year, because Red Bull's already gonna be looking to 2026.
Oh yeah.
So you got to try and get them like kind of Red Bull did to Mercedes with Max Hamilton that year, 2021.
Just keep building and building and building. Yep.
Yep. So that's why I have Ferrari as my winners of the weekend. It really just solidifies them where they are.
Yeah, no, you're right. Solidifies them as the number 2 team, but also like a strong number 2. It's not like the last couple years where it's been leagues 30-second wins by Max, 50-second wins by Max. There's possibilities for there to be closer races this year.
Right. And they won a race already. It didn't take till week 17.
Right.
To get one.
That's a good point.
Losers. My loser is Williams as a team.
Yeah.
Couple crashes in the weekend. Loads of money spent. No points to show for it. Another chassis needs to get repaired. More parts delayed. They won't have a backup chassis until supposedly Miami now, which is 2 races out after China. So yeah, just really unfortunate for them. Tough weekend for them. 0 points. Nothing.
You're spot on. Yeah, that's it's difficult to hear, but that's a very real analysis. I got Sargent as my loser for the weekend. Aside from the crash, no real fault of his own. I mean, he went off in that corner that you mentioned during the race, but poor guy's just got to bring it home, have a good weekend, and keep his mental, strength there. He's got to keep his head in the game and just focus on the fundamentals and bringing the car home, sadly. But he had a really tough weekend, and I hope being able to get to China where there's a more even playing field.
There's a lot of unknowns.
Right. No driver has been there in 5 years. Your teammate has only driven the course once. You've never driven it. You've got opportunity for points in 2 separate events. There's going to be limited testing. So
these tires, I don't think have been there.
Right.
Since they've gotten larger.
Just get there, try and find something going on with the car, with the tires, with the strategy, with the testing, with the qualifying, and
Yep. If they can get on it quick, they should have a good advantage.
make it happen. Take advantage of wherever you can. Take some risks in the strategy if you have to, but don't compromise your car. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong out there.
Right.
Bring the car home.
Yeah. I think that's the entire weekend.
Right.
So yeah, that does bring us to China next week. Like we were talking about, nobody's been there since 2019. That was the rookie year for Norris, Albon, Russell, I think.
Yep. I think so.
Yeah, should be interesting. First year that these cars will be there. The ground effect. Apparently they fixed some of the bumps that they had. I don't know, they called them like the China bumps or whatever.
I didn't even know they had
I
them.
don't know. Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay.
I guess it's been that long. Probably don't remember.
Jeez.
But yeah, got new asphalt in spots, so that'll be interesting as well.
That first corner complex is so cool. I can't wait
It is
for that.
cool. That like 270 degree corner.
It's going to be so, these cars are bigger too, man. There's going to,
Yeah.
ooh.
It'll be fun to watch. That first lap's going to be must see. Yeah. At least the first 20 seconds.
And we get 2 first laps.
Oh, sprint weekend.
Yeah.
It's a sprint weekend. That's right. That'll be fun. That even more unknown. That's probably what make it even better.
Even better.
Except there's no Parc Ferme after qualifying for the sprint race. So teams can make changes now after the sprint qualifying for regular qualifying.
Hey?
Does that make sense?
No.
So they changed the
You
rules.
have FP1 on Friday.
So last year. So let's go back to last year.
okay.
Last year's sprint races, you had FP1,
Yep.
you had sprint quali.
No, you had qualifying for the race.
Sorry, no. Didn't they switch it?
No. Last year was where they had free practice,
Yeah.
qualifying for the race on Sunday.
Okay, yep.
Then
You're right.
Saturday they had
You're right.
sprint qualifying,
You're right.
then sprint. But right at basically you had 60-minute testing and then
Yep.
you're in Parc Ferme.
So I guess my point is, I guess I don't know the order of events that are happening.
I think it's the same order.
Okay, if it's the same order, you go in Parc Ferme for the qualifying or for the race that you have done. So let's say if regular qualifying is first, you're in Parc Ferme for that.
Okay.
But then for the sprint, you can adjust for sprint qualifying for the sprint race.
Okay.
I might be wrong. That maybe you're not in Parc Ferme until the sprint race.
Interesting. Okay.
But it gives teams more time to
Because
make
this is something
adjustments,
that we were
essentially.
talking about last year because people
Yes.
were going into Parc Ferme on a Friday afternoon. And
which
being
I
like,
personally loved, and I don't think anybody else did,
I actually liked it too.
because I think it just led to a lot more crazy results.
Yes.
Toward
Like,
the back, other than Ripple.
sorry, your car's not set up correctly. That's your fault.
Yeah, right. Sorry,
Deal
we
with
had
it.
60 minutes.
Yeah.
Tough. Don't crash.
Yeah. Don't crash.
But yeah, basically they have more setup time.
Okay.
They have more time to make adjustments, is my point. Yeah.
Well, let's see how that shakes out. I'm sure we'll get a recap during the weekend from the broadcasts to sort of explain the situation and let us know how this is going to work. This is not only the first sprint of the weekend or of the year, but it'll be the first sprint ever done in China.
It'll be fun.
It'll be interesting.
Yes.
Hopefully fingers
it's fun.
crossed it's fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be a good time.
And like you said, Zhou Guanyu will have his first home race finally.
Yes. I'm expecting a special livery.
Special livery, special helmet.
It's hard to keep track of helmets, though. I do want to see his helmet. He's had good helmets.
He's had great helmets.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does.
Ooh.
So I'm pretty
Are
excited.
we going to have a livery video and a helmet
I
video?
don't think
No.
we can. Do you remember when they didn't allow drivers to change helmets?
That's right.
Like more than like twice a year?
You were only allowed to change a helmet once a year. For like, you basically could
have a
one
one-off.
special. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was ridiculous. And then now you can do whatever you want anytime, essentially.
Anytime. Yeah. Well,
Which is cool.
it's fine.
I like that.
It's better.
Yeah. More fun.
Someone should do the same design, but change the colors ever so slightly in a gradient. So over the course of a year.
It goes like black or white.
Yeah. Or
Start
rainbow.
at one. Start at one and go to go all the way across.
Or like a rainbow. That'd be so cool.
Once we get to like 50 races, then they can really do that.
Oh, yeah.
And then you won't even notice.
You
until
wouldn't
you're
notice.
like, wait a
It
second.
would be so cool.
That would be kind of fun, actually. Good idea. Send that in.
So just to recap, at the start of Japan, Red Bull was first in the Constructors' Championship, 4 points over Ferrari. They now have a 21-point lead after the weekend. McLaren solidified their position in third by gaining 14 points. They're now on 69. Believe it or not, Mercedes and Aston Martin started the weekend with a 1 point gap between them on 26 and 25 respectively. Both scored 8 points, 34 and 33. And then down below, Racing Bulls at 7 or whatever they are. V-Carb, the other team, AlphaTauri. Yep. Toro Rosso. Haas on 4, Williams, Sauber, and Alpine all on 0.
Yeah, Max leading the championship still.
Yep.
Perez second, Leclerc third, Sainz fourth.
The gaps are starting to sort of widen.
Yep, little by little.
Yep. All the Beermen still ahead of Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen.
But Yuki did pass him.
Yuki finally did pass a guy who's only raced one event.
Right.
And then Albon, Sargent, Bottas, Guan Yu, Ricardo, Ocon, and Gasly, all with 0 points. And they've raced, for most of them, 4 events and have fewer points than a guy who's raced just once.
Oh, that's what happens when you have a Ferrari.
I guess that is what happens when you have a Ferrari.
Well, that's all I think we got this week.
Yeah, really looking forward to the next race in China. I'm really excited for Shanghai. I remember in 2019 and 2018, there were side-by-side comparisons of what the track looked like and its surroundings when they first started going there to what it looked like at the last time, because like when they went there, it's like they were talking about how this was going to be like the central key thing for like an entertainment district. And like you could see the city way off in the distance, Shanghai downtown. And then over time, like people started moving closer. China was developing, all these things that were happening surrounding the circuit. We haven't been there for 5 years now. And I'm guessing that the area surrounding the circuit will look completely different.
That'll be interesting.
Just completely
I didn't
developed.
even realize that. Yeah.
So let's see what it looks like. I mean, every time when you do these side-by-side comparisons with China, right, you see these videos of like, oh, they built a subway line in the middle of a farm field. And then like 4 years later, it's like a bustling central
hub of like a major city.
Right. There's like 13 bus lines intersecting it and like hundreds of people walking around at any given point in time. Yeah. So let's see. So just those two things. Excited for the race weekend, the sprint race, but also what the surroundings look like and seeing how far it's come. It's been 5 years.
Yeah. It should be fun. Exciting race. But yeah. This has been the Pit Lane. And thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you next time.